Yeah, A.J. Mahari here. There are so many people right now in what I would call the BPD relationship breakup limbo. Because the relationship ended, and then either the non borderline codependent ex continued to try to make contact, and sometimes it works. And then, or they heard in a Hoover from the person with BPD, but for some people, they do get back into contact, and then, things don't really move necessarily so much further from there. And some of your ex with BPD could seem really like she's or he's, being more communicative for an untreated BPD than they were, like when they obviously weren't communicating to you. But the thing about that is, so there's this limbo place where you might reestablish some communication, but to what end, and what's really being experienced there? And I call this kind of that limbo place. So it's not really recycling because so many people in this limbo place, your contact happens again, but it's really not going to lead to getting back with the person. Not going to lead to a relationship recycle. And then what happens in this limbo place? People are just so anxious, so feeling somewhat better by being back in touch with the ex, but realizing, there's a lot of problems with this, and I don't think it's good for me, and they're pretty negative, and they're wherever they're at, but they're negative, and then they can be like, they don't really get hot again in terms of like really on or any re-idealization. They're usually sort of like, not even making it to lukewarm and communicating with you, and then they get really cold. And the person, the non-borderline codependent in this limbo place with some contact, but it's not going anywhere, it's a very confusing, difficult place. And I would liken it to sort of like, because people feel better with some communication, because that's a little bit of a hit, isn't it? And then, but like it's making, if recovery is a carrot stick in front of your face, it keeps moving as you move. Well, this limbo place of contact that isn't going anywhere, people kind of realize that, but they keep doing it because, they can relax a little bit. Maybe they can focus on work a little bit better because they're not quite as focused on, the person with BPD when there was no contact. It's the drug, it's the addiction, it's the hit. And I liken it to sort of like playing a slot machine, but just pulling that lever, pulling it. And when you get contact, so in this slot machine that I'm just creating here for this, to use as an example, it's not like there's lemons and grapes or whatever's actually in them, that comes up and then, money comes out the bottom. No, it's more to illustrate the addiction, that limbo place, that no-win place of like, I need that hit. I need that communication. I don't know what to do with myself. I can't focus on anything. I'm anxious. I can't think about anything else. But then you get some communication. Some people do. It's not really the best thing for you to do because it's going to make your healing and recovery even longer and more difficult and more painful. But some people have more addictive type personalities anyways, and so then they have this going on, and some people hold the no contact, and but in this limbo place, pulling the lever, pulling it. It's like that slot machine, only this one just shows up in contact, no contact. They were talking to me, now they've gone really cold. They're all negative, but like, I need this. And since I got back in communication with them, I've heard people say, clients say, then it's taking the edge off, like, all my anxiety, and I can like work better, I can relax some more. But really, why? Because it's more codependent denial, and it is the addiction of the trauma bond. And maybe for some people with codependency, not all, it's the love addiction of being in love with being in love, even though you're being in love by yourself. And then a client recently say to me that the person with BPD, their ex, that they're kind of in some communication with, but not a lot, said, I know you love me, but I despise you. And this is the recontact. This is the kind of communication that's going on. This person's pulling the lever, pulling the lever, pulling the lever. It's limbo. It's like pacing up and down on a block where there's a drug dealer with the drug of your choice that you're addicted to. And you keep pacing back and forth, and every once in a while you go over there and get a hit. And then you go home, and you go back out in the corner, and you're pacing back and forth again. It's limbo. It's emotional impossibility. It's a roller coaster ride self-induced by a person with codependency and an ex, not consciously, but who's just in this horrible place of, I can't stand being alone, I'm too anxious, I can't focus, I can't stop ruminating. The Stockholm Syndrome of the trauma bond, the whole addiction is really real. And for some people, you get that hit again, even though it's not much of a hit. You pulling the lever, got a text message, okay, but you're not getting back together. There's no talk about getting back together. This is limbo. This isn't recycling. You keep pulling the lever, and it's like hit and miss, hit and miss, hit and miss. But while you're pulling that lever all day long in your mind, or you get the odd text, you respond back, you care about this person, you might still love them, but they're just all negative. They're distant, they're detached, they're negative, because they never were attached in the first place. Limbo. For non-borderline codependents, it's hell. And if you're there, you really will benefit from trying to do the impossible, which is, it's like you need to get into therapy, and I'm out here to work with people, I resonate with you, but what you need to do is be able to let go of that. Yeah, you need your own detox, emotional detox. And what's that look like? Something else, I'm going to be having a video series coming on, and I'm going to be talking about this more going forward with clients as I have been, but the lever of this different slot machine called BPD relationship breakup hell, and you keep pulling it because you've been traumatized and you're an emotional wreck if you're in this limbo place, right? Some people move on and into recovery, and some people go back, and but all of this self-abandonment, all of this trying to avoid, you're just putting off the inevitable. Slot machine, pulling it. And so I haven't talked about this before because there's so many people in this limbo place that isn't going to recycle, isn't going to bring the relationship back, will end up in no contact again because you'll get ghosted or discarded again, because if that's what's happened once. I don't think all people with BPD do that, but if they've done it once, or twice, or whatever, many times, it's part of their pattern. Each individual person with untreated BPD, or maybe a little bit of treatment. But the point is, if you're pulling on that, BPD relationship breakup slot machine, you probably don't have a minute's worth of relaxation, calm, or peace in your life. So what are you going to do about that? That's very challenging, and it's a very, very stressful place to be, limbo. It's putting enormous, not only psychological, emotional, causing you distress, but it is likely to be stressing you out to the physical, the mind-body connection. People really need to be mindful of that and careful with that. And so, this limbo with the addiction, with the a little hit is better than nothing. But really, to what end, and is it really? Because it will prolong your process, because people can't survive in limbo ad infinitum, because you're going to have an emotional breakdown, you're going to have psychological issues, and or you're going to get physically ill because it's too stressful. It's like always being on, and anxiety just peaking, and maybe it drops a little with a hit, but What if all you're hearing is negativity and things like what I heard a client say was that their ex, some kind of contact, but they're in limbo, and they're pulling that lever, and they're anxious all the and and their ex communicated, "I know you love me, but I despise you," which is kind of like a synopsis of what happens in these relationships, because people with BPE despise the lack of themselves, and they can't take in your love, and they can't attach, etc. As I've said. Are you in limbo right now? Are you anxious? Is this driving you, quote, crazy? Just in the, not literally, but crazy, but it might feel like it's literally driving you crazy. I've heard that from a lot of clients as well. Are you in that limbo place where there's a little bit of contact? And maybe you were friends with this person before you got romantically involved, and you want to stay involved, like at least as friends or something, but you're kidding yourself, because it's like being an alcoholic, a really active alcoholic, and then all of a sudden you got clean and sober, right, in like rehab, and then you come back out and you're like, I don't think a couple drinks will hurt me. It's the same thing with this contact with the BPX when you're in the limbo place of like, there's just nowhere to escape your rumination and your anxiety.